Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and this week's episode is special. But first, make sure to subscribe for more and consider donating to St. Jude's from now until the 31st. With 22 being my favorite number, I just had to match it with what is, at the time of this video's release, my favorite horror game. This week, I'm looking at Outlast, an indie horror game released in 2013. With Capcom's Resident Evil games favoring action over horror, we'll get there one day, and EA's Dead Space series all but dead, space was open for a new horror game and or franchise. And then in came new development studio Red Barrels to capitalize on this hole in the market. Red Barrels was started in 2011 by, sorry in advance, Philippe Mouhan, David Chateauneuf, and Yuhal Dalek, three former Ubisoft and EA Montreal employees. For their inaugural interactive intellectual idea as independence, they took inspiration from Frictional Games' 2010 horror game Amnesia: The Dark Descent and the horror movies Wreck and Quarantine. The result was a horror game that took the world by storm and can be seen as the game responsible for rejuvenating, revitalizing, and restructuring the reception and reputation of indie horror games. A movement really started by Amnesia 3 years prior, but had died down in the time between. So let's take that knowledge and go back to a time when journalists actually cared about the truth and give it everything we've got. The game opens in the first-person perspective of a man listening to a radio moments before impending disaster, but he doesn't have the same predilection for deliciously disgusting burgers, no. This man is investigative reporter Miles Upshur, and he only gets his sustenance from juicy news stories, which is why he's driving up to Mount Massive Asylum for the criminally insane, built atop of the real Mount Massive in Colorado. Miles rolls up and checks out the note from a cheeky little whistleblower that led him here and talks about the shady Murkoff Corporation. Well, as long as they aren't being just the butt-fucking worst at their one and only job in letting viruses escape and infect humanity, are they really that bad? Well, that's what Miles intends to find out as he equips his most effective weapon, a camcorder with night vision, and heads off toward the asylum. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that asylums for the criminally insane are always safe places that you don't need to bring heavy artillery to whenever you explore them. Maybe Miles' camcorder can camcord how good this game looks, especially for the time. For an indie horror game that's nearly 10 years old made by a small team of people, it holds up very well. Miles sees some welcoming military vehicles and sneaks through an open window after climbing some construction scaffolding. Oh, jump scares. Are you ever not scary for 5 seconds and then incredibly annoying? This is when the inspiration from Amnesia and Wreck and Quarantine are on full display, as your camcorder's night vision is the only way you'll be able to descend to the dark depths of Mount Massive, and you have to continuously be on the lookout for batteries throughout the building, as Miles' camera uses the same battery brand as Alan Wake. Already it's apparent that this asylum wouldn't pass even the most lax health and safety inspection, and really the quality of this establishment is the most horrifying thing here. Like Resident Evil, almost this entire game's plot is conveyed through notes and documents you find scattered throughout the building, and the early ones mention something about the morphogenic engine and its subject, Billy Hope. After crawling through a bloody grate, Miles enters the Jesus, dude, have you ever been into a library before? No, but don't worry, that's the only terrifying thing in this library, I promise. Understandably, Miles wants to GTFO, but he's on the second floor, and there's no way he'll get to the first one, especially without help. Any takers?
Little pig.
Thank you! That helpful little angel that just yeeted you the fuck out of the window like he was Jason Voorhees is Chris Walker, a freakishly strong and intelligent war veteran turned Mount Massive security guard who eventually became as insane as those he guarded against when he casually ripped 3 dudes' heads off. The mutilation around his mouth and forehead are all self-inflicted, as he's severely anxious about his appearance and ripped off his forehead flesh to allow for a truer way of seeing. You try to make sense of the insane. It's not easy, trust me. I've listened to modern world leaders.
Right, honourable gentlemen, not up and only put up taxes on inheritance and pensions and corporations.
About this because the recent came out, I had not remembered.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives, when you think about it.
We will be looking at what contact tracing looks like in the New World Order.
Thanks to the Walker Express, Miles has made it into the main lobby in record time, where he's discovered by Father Martin Archambault, a seemingly well-intending patient who claims Miles is his apostle for a higher purpose. Miles' fuck meter is already firmly on E, so he navigates through some hallways to get a security key card in order to access the security room and unlock the front door, coming across some passive and aggressive inmates along the way. One of the smaller details about this game that I appreciate is that not every inmate in the asylum is a stark raving madman trying to slurp your brains through your intestines. Some of them are just poor souls who weren't given the proper treatment they were promised. Well, really all of them are like that, but these ones don't chuck you out of windows. Miles basks in the glory of a man's celebratory bathroom experience and learns about the highly dangerous Project Walrider, and that it is somehow tied into the morphogenic engine therapy. Walrider sounds like the nickname you'd give a really good skater. Now in the security room, Miles begins to unlock the doors. Wow, this game is going to be really short. Wait, Father, what are you doing? No, don't pull that. Oh, god damn it. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. Now he's going to be extra mad. But I don't think we believe in the same God. With the lights out, it's more dangerous. Chris is here now. Please don't kill us. The game gets real now. This is Outlast's Event Horizon. Miles goes down into the basement and has to turn on 3 pumps in order to turn on the generator, and he has to do all of that in complete and total darkness. But this isn't just a question of are you afraid of the dark, it's a question of are you afraid of the darkness hiding the insane inmates stalking your every move and trying to bash your head in with a baseball bat. If you don't know about the game, Miles will return to the security room after completion and once again open the security doors to reveal this to— oh come on, what now? You know, Martin, I'm beginning to suspect that you don't have my best interest at heart. This game was originally supposed to have a female companion that guided us, and I would have preferred her over you, but I was willing to give you a chance. Plus, Martin's one of those guys that talks during movies, and I hate those guys.
Our Lord, the Walrider, tearing his truth into the unbelievers. The only way out of this place is the truth. Accept the gospel. All doors will open.
That movie did nothing for Miles but put him to sleep though, although it might have been the drugs. Miles wakes up on the inside of a padded cell, which I'm pretty sure is the side you don't want to be on. While exploring the prison block, you are able to get a good look at the perfectly disgusting designs of these inmates, and that includes these 2 twins who are a bit too confident in their bodies. They're also very confident in their desires.
I want his tongue and liver.
Speaking of strange desires, Miles comes across someone who takes Drop Dead Gorgeous a bit too seriously and learns that Martin will be acting as his North Star and guiding him with the light of blood writing on the walls. The analogy kind of fell apart at the end there, but you get the point. During Miles' escape, his nemesis-looking nemesis shows up again talking about something he needs to contain, because an insane dude with a bat and 2 insane naked bros weren't enough of a hassle. Yeah, throw in the king of dad bods, but am I glad he's down there and that we're up here and that he's the sheriff and that we're frozen down here and that we're down there and I just remembered we're up here. What I want to know is where's the big man? Oh, there he is. Well, let's just run past this mass of probably hazardous gas and balls of flame. Oh, fuck. Now that's just nasty. Down here, Miles evades Chris once again and Jen Psaki circles back to the place where Chris was earlier, complete with headless inmate and everything. Miles scales the floors, or lack thereof, where he finds an obituary for one Dr. Rudolph Wernicke, jumps down a hole into the showers, and this lovely room. Do you think if they wrote all that on the floor, they'd have to call him the Floor Rider? Miles then hops into the sewers, which, in a place with a seemingly endless amount of inmates, all of whom look something like this, I'm sure it smells just wonderful down there. For my money, the sewer section is the scariest part of the game. You're in these tight, cramped corridors, and the whole time you're being stalked by the douchiest Chris since this guy.
Alright, campers, I heard from an anonymous source that someone is supporting trans rights. Not cool.
Eventually, Miles comes across this man, who asks a very valid question.
What kind of experiments does a dead doctor perform on living patients? That's the question.
And climbs the ladder into the blood sewers. Oh joy! You know, this blood sewer connects to the female ward, and that's as far as I want to go with that train of thought. Miles performs some hardcore parkour to escape Chris and climb higher into the sewers, and eventually into the male ward, where he begins to see lots of bloody operating tables and a very concerning note from a Dr. Rick Traeger. But what are the odds there's a psycho doctor in this game? Unlikely. Having escaped Chris for now, Miles revels in this brief moment of relaxed tension by immediately enraging a group of psychos and being forced to run from them and perform feats of athletic prowess no investigative reporter not named Clark Kent should be capable of. Eventually, he is contacted by someone who recognizes he isn't insane and tells him to wait for the dumb waiter to lower and get into it. Miles does, and we're raised into the heavens to meet our glorious savior.
You're the right choice here, bud.
Were we the dumb waiter? As expected, this is Dr. Richard Traeger, a former very rapey head of business development for the Murkoff Corporation who was sent to Mount Massive after getting caught leaking private information and getting into a fight with investigators that led him to losing a bunch of his hair and scarring his scalp when he got caught in a paper shredder. Then his body became all gross and scarred as a result of morphogenic engine therapy, which just sounds less and less fun as the game goes on. Traeger wheels you into just the most sanitary room and gives you some unexpected, unwanted, and unappreciated surgery.
You paying attention? Don't pass out on me. There's still a lot for you to absorb.
Man, fuck this guy. Miles still has those fingers, you know. This next section is Miles running around this makeshift surgical ward searching for a key for the elevator, while avoiding Traeger and his frankly obvious means of compensation. Traeger is my favorite character in this game. His projected friendly personality while he's chasing after you with giant shears after just cutting off 2 of your fingers is a hilarious and terrifying contrast. It helps that the faux surgical ward you're in is populated with failed and current patients of his, so you can really see how deranged he is. I'm not the only person who thinks he's great either. His voice actor, Alex Ivanovici, was nominated for Outstanding Performance in a Video Game at the ACTRA Montreal Awards. He's still an active voice actor in horror games too, most recently providing the voice of James in the Dark Pictures Little Hope, a game I haven't played. Back to a game I have played, Traeger isn't finished with you after you get in the elevator, as he tries to grab you from inside it. You want to grab me? Huh?
Very poor choice of words.
Guess he couldn't get on my level! With Traeger blocking the exit, Miles has to take the stairs, and he reunites with Martin soon afterward, who tells him to meet him outside. Sorry, Martin, but if I went through everything Miles has gone through and managed to get outside, meeting up with one of the inmates would be the last thing on my mind. Since nothing ever comes easy in this place, the one exit is being obstructed by a fire started by Two-Face over here, and Miles has to restore water to the system and turn it on, all the while repeating his favorite song and dance with renowned minuet of Murder Master Chris Walker. I'm sure Two-Face won't mind that I extinguish his flame. I mean, I know he wanted this whole place to burn, but we can resolve this like... Or not! We finally made it outside, and Miles wants to find Martin. Why? Miles makes his way through one of the... Oh, fuck, what is that? That, my friends, is the Wall Rider. You know, we've heard so much about him, and now he seems like kind of a dick in person. Never meet your heroes, kids. Also, don't watch this video, kids. Miles continues to explore the exterior of Mount Massive Asylum in the pitch blackness of night and all of the fun that brings, until eventually he finds a... Oh, come on! Why are you right there? Miles summons his inner Corey Kenshin and breaks Chris's ankles before progressing into the female ward. Miles, you have no obligation to keep listening to Martin. Just leave! You've already lost 2 of your fingers, man! Sadly, there aren't any Harley Quinns here, but there are plenty of dudes that would be more than happy to have your meat. Martin tells you to follow him, which of course involves avoiding a bunch of crazies to find fuses for a laundry chute so Miles can grab a key off a dead security guard stuffed into it. Of course Miles succeeds, because we are unstoppable. A one-man army tearing through this place with only his camcorder and nothing gets to... well, we're fucked. Might as well die. Goodbye, everyone. In what is a close contender for the most anxious stretch of a video game, there is one thing that beats it. Miles has to navigate the hallways of Mount Massive Asylum all alone on a quest to retrieve his best friend, which is, of course, sitting in the middle of a completely dark room. Ah, great. Now there's a crack in it. Miles makes a run for it, and soon we're back where we began our adventure. It was right before we met Chris.
Are you kidding me?
Miles once again escapes Chris's grip and is instructed to watch a movie and then take the key from behind the projector. Said movie is a morphogenic engine activation sequence. In an interview with Dr. Wernicke, Wernicke says that the morphogenic engine would only activate within the mind of someone who had experienced lots of horror. In that case, I really don't think Miles should keep watching. But what would a horror protagonist be without a complete and utter lack of basic self-preservation instinct? Key in hand, Miles heads off toward the chapel to reunite with Martin and see what that annoying little f*** has in store for him next. God, he just makes me so cross. Oh. Hi. Martin gives Miles the key to the now fixed main elevator and then, as Miles himself puts it, one-ups Jesus Christ himself in shitty ways to die. Final Fanta key in hand, Miles heads for the main elevator to finally get out of here. Personally, I would have splurged on another ride on the Walker Express. Dude, what are you, Beetlejuice? Miles evades Chris yet again and makes his way into the elevator one final time. Oh man, this guy just cannot catch a break. This underground facility that wouldn't look out of place on Hoth is Murkoff's research facility, the core of the morphogenic engine, if you will, the heart of the Wall Rider. Miles finds the set of the movie he watched earlier and soon encounters the Wall Rider. Since this is not an RPG, the Wall Rider doesn't appreciate the protagonist just wandering into his house for no reason. Miles runs from the Wall Rider and— What?! How do you even get down here?! Thanks for that. If you don't mind, I'm still gonna run in the other direction. Miles' continued exploration leads him to discover the obviously still alive Dr. Wernicke. He explains that the Wall Rider symbol we've been seeing warns of a nanohazard, and is a much cooler logo for that than any of the actual logos. He also explains that Project Wall Rider uses the human body as a nanomachine factory, and that's what the figure we've been seeing is, a collection of nanomachines. Finally, he tasks Miles with killing Billy Hope, the current host of the Wall Rider, to eliminate the being for good. And of course, Miles doesn't question Jack. You could have at least said, "Would you kindly," or something, Rudy. Yeah, Billy, I know you just saved me from a giant man beast that's been hunting me all night and everything, but this old Nazi on life support told me to kill you, so sorry. Obviously, the Wall Rider isn't happy with the whole killing him thing and decides it's finally time to show just how fucked Miles would have been hours ago if the Wall Rider actually decided to bother with him at any point up to now. Well, I hope you're ready to get me too, Mr. Wall Rider, because I definitely did not consent to that. Look, he was so rough that Miles can't walk any faster than this. Well, at least we can escape now that that's over. Huh. Well, that sucks. So yeah, the reason Martin kept fucking you around like that was because he wanted you to be able to activate the morphogenic engine and unleash the Wall Rider upon the world, who was his god. And Chris was trying to contain the Wall Rider by killing anyone who could potentially be its host. You may think it ends there, but you'd be wrong. In May of 2014, the Whistleblower DLC story was released, and that's where our attention goes next. The DLC opens from the perspective of Wayland Park, software consultant for Murkoff, currently being groped the fuck out by this dude and being subjected to the morphogenic engine. The game then flashes back to 2 hours earlier and, as you may have been able to predict, shows Wayland sending Miles the email that led to his arrival at Mount Massive. He is summoned to activate the morphogenic engine sequence for this man, Eddie Gluskin. You know, given how the average inmate of this place looks, I'd say Eddie should consider himself lucky. Ooh. My bad. Wayland returns to his laptop and graduates from the Hunter Biden School of hiding laptops with secret information on them as Jeremy Blair, head of Mount Massive, finds the laptop in an email he sent. He then has Wayland committed to Mount Massive, thus leading to the opening of the game. But if Wayland is just an inmate here, how is he going to see in the dark? Well, have no fear. Someone just so happened to leave the same exact camcorder model as Miles is behind, and it's just as inefficient with batteries. The most interesting part of this DLC is that it takes place before the events of the main game, so you get to see the asylum in the earlier stages of the inmate takeover. Also, since Wayland is exposed to the morphogenic engine right away, the Wall Rider is a threat from the beginning, as opposed to staying mostly hidden until around the 3/4 mark. Back to the story, Wayland learns about a radio in a guard tower that he can use to call for help, and heads off toward that. Finally, a protagonist whose main goal is just to get the fuck out. Much like Miles, Wayland doesn't ever speak, only writing down his thoughts on notepaper. However, I like Wayland's notes more. Whereas Miles was a cynical man who rightly on everything he saw, Wayland is constantly fearing for his life, and most of his notes are addressed to his wife. It makes you pull for him to survive just a bit more. Speaking of survival, Wayland's first test is a naked cannibal with a buzzsaw. Hard to say if that's more or less dangerous than 2 naked cannibals with knives. He manages to escape into the crematorium, where he finds... not cool! No, seriously, he tosses you into a furnace. That's really not cool. Since Waylon is secretly the goddamn Hulk, he manages to escape by bashing through a brick wall. But Waylon's adventures in Cannibal Land aren't done yet, as he has to avoid him while shutting off the toxic gas leaking into a decontamination chamber. Doing so allows him to escape to the outdoors. But unlike Miles, this is an enclosed outdoor space, so Waylon can't just leave. Oh, come on! That wasn't even a psycho attacking or anything! You just tripped! Not fair! Waylon's Courtyard Chronicles include an appearance from everyone's favorite pair of nudist cannibal brothers and a group of people who took Get Your Head in the Game a bit too seriously. It's not long before he finds the radio and is...
Waylon? You couldn't just keep your mouth shut. You couldn't just play along. Now. Do me a favor and die here, Park.
This man just cannot catch a break! And yeah, if you needed definitive proof that this takes place before the events of the first game, there's Chris and all his not shredded into mincemeat glory. And look, it's that asshole who got us killed in all his not extra crispy deep fried glory writing a message on the wall for Miles. So at the very least, Miles just arrived at Mount Massive not that long ago. With no clear escape plan, Waylon relies on a classic and begins Waylon's Courtyard Chronicles Act 2, Literal Electric Boogaloo. Eventually he finds himself in what looks like a whole-ass missile silo. He attempts to jump to the roof of another building, but his cheeks are so dummy thick that he claps right through the roof. Or the building of this place was shoddy, but is there any evidence to suggest that Murkoff isn't an upstanding company that takes care of its employees and patients? In this new building, Waylon navigates around a man with as much personality as this guy and eventually stumbles across... Okay, let's just move on. Oh, hi. Are you still mad about the whole submitting you to a horrifying experimentation and permanently scarring your face thing? Surely you wouldn't hold a grudge for more than, what, 5-ish hours? Well, I'm gonna run just in case. See you later, bye! Oh, that's not good. Oh, that is not good! Yeah, in a game where your only options are to run, hide, or die, a limp is the last thing you want. At least we can still hide.
Darling, can't hide from me.
You weren't supposed to do that.
Eddie gasses Waylon, and he stays asleep for 12 hours? Dang, can I get some of that? After witnessing some cringe-inducing content in the best way possible, Waylon's number comes up, and the part every guy who played this game had the exact same reaction to begins. I don't know who that guy was that attacked Eddie just in time, but he's a goddamn hero. In case you were wondering, Eddie is obsessed with finding himself a bride, and since there are no women at this place anymore, he thinks he can just get the same result by carving his own hole. Speaking of holes, Waylon jumps out of the first one he finds to escape Eddie, fully snapping his leg in half for funsies. Waylon waylimps his way into discovering Eddie's magnum opus, a collection of all of his failed brides. King Henry VIII ain't got nothing on this guy. He finds a key, fittingly, at an altar and attempts to escape, but since attempts to escape in this game have an overall success rate of 0, he is stopped by Eddie, who attempts to force him into hanging out with all of his exes. But, as I said earlier, Waylon is too dummy thick. His weight causes the pulley system to snap, and Eddie is impaled on a broken ceiling beam. Now begins Waylon's victory lap. Or victory limp. Along the way, he sees a church burning in the distance, and you know what that means. In the 12 hours that Waylon was asleep, most of the events of the first game took place. At this point, with how much the fire spread, Miles is probably having some fun with the Wall Rider underground. Mercenaries have begun plowing through Mount Massive, mowing down anything that moves. Waylon comes across the dead body of Dr. Dick and overhears this radio message.
Multiple officers down. Sub-basement. Unknown area. We need help. Fire laboratory.
Waylon continues to limp down memory lane towards the exit of hell when he sees an injured Jeremy Blair, who stabs him with a shard of glass. Oh, come on, we're so close! Luckily, Waylon's able to make a hot tag to the Wall Rider, who makes quick work of the worst asylum warden since Professor Strange. Waylon escapes Mount Massive in the car of the man he summoned there, witnessing the Wall Rider escape those cursed halls, ready to wreak uncontrolled havoc on the world. That itself would have been a great way to end it, but we get one bonus scene of Waylon uploading all the footage he captured to expose Murkoff. Shame you couldn't have found Miles' camcorder somehow and uploaded that too. I said this at the beginning and I'll say it again. This is my favorite horror game of all time. Granted, I don't play very many, but this one is going to be hard to beat. The setting of Mount Massive Asylum is so intricately designed to be terrifying that even the slower sections of the game where you can catch your breath are unnerving. Every hallway feels like a death trap, and the game perfectly balances the use of light and dark to make you feel safe and vulnerable respectively. Speaking of balancing, the game has expert battery placement. You never have enough to feel safe, but you always have enough to progress. It forces you to not waste time and carry on with the game. All of the main antagonists are unique and interesting in their own way, along with all being your pants terrifying. Like I said, Traeger is my personal favorite, but I love how, in a way, Chris was trying to do the right thing. I don't think the whole Project Walrider thing was necessary to the game, but it worked at showing how dangerous Murkoff was and how depraved they were to treat people like that in the name of science. Miles not surviving the game kinda sucked, but they set it up enough that it at least made sense and didn't feel like it was just done for shock value. The Whistleblower DLC is one of the most valuable bits of DLC I have seen. It takes place in the exact same setting, yet manages to barely use any locations from the first until the end. It adds context before the story, adds extra details to the main story, and gives a conclusion to the story. Those scenes where Miles loses his fingers and Waylon almost loses his junk still make me cringe to this day, and having Waylon break his leg and have to limp was a great way to add stress and terror to the game. I just wished it happened in a longer story or earlier in this one to fully capitalize on it. Overall, the package deal of Outlast and Outlast Whistleblower get a 9 out of 10. I do think there are a few too many jump scares and enemy AI isn't always great or consistent, but it is still one of the scariest games I have ever played and a perfect example of how a small team of dedicated, hardworking, and talented individuals who take their time will always produce a better product than a large company that shoves out games like an assembly line. With the ending of Whistleblower leaving the fate of the Walrider and Murkoff as ambiguous as possible, fans were anxiously anticipating a sequel to answer those questions. And next week, we'll see what answers lie in store for us beyond the gates of hell. Spoiler alert, basically none. I hope to see you there.